The government shutdown clock is still ticking. There's still no deal and only 12 days left till the alarm goes off.
Yeah, fewer working days than that. Drew Petrimoulx here with us, tracking the latest developments in the negotiations. May not be another person in Washington who wants to see this come to an end than Drew Petrimoulx.
Talking about a day.
I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked you Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday. Where do things stand this morning?
Well, we have a proposal from Democrats.
Oh, that's new.
A counterproposal. So it's basically a grab bag of wish list proposals from Democrats. They want to restore $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that Republicans passed over the summer. They want a big extension of subsidies for the Affordable Care Act marketplace. They want a big increase in security funding, way more than Republicans want to put in for member security in the wake of the killing of Charlie Kirk. So again, it's a wish list, and it's very unlikely that any of this passes, but Democrats are kind of staking their claim and saying, okay, you want a clean bill, we want all these things, come negotiate. Republicans say there's no time to negotiate, we're not doing that, take it or leave it.
So then what, Drew?
That's the big question. So Republicans, it appears, would have the votes. They can get this through the House. They plan on voting on it tomorrow, and they'll likely toss it over to the Senate, where it'll be up to Democrats in the Senate to see if they want to go along. So far, Democrats are saying that if you don't come negotiate, then it's on you if the government shuts down. What is kind of complicating this is that right now it seems like if Republicans pass their bill on Friday, the earliest the Senate could vote would be on Monday. Well, there's a holiday, Rosh Hashanah holiday next week. Everyone's going to be out of town. So the thinking is the vote would actually happen after the holiday, that they'd come back maybe Thursday and vote. So that's when this will all come to a head. And the big question is, are Democrats going to hold their ground and fight for some sort of concession from Republicans that Republicans say right now they don't want to give?
So my calendar math says that would be the 25th of next week. I want to go back to something that you said in terms of what the Democrats are asking for. So you mentioned the ACA subsidies. They're also asking foreign aid money that had been frozen by the Trump administration to be unfrozen and distributed. More money for public media, which we saw in that pocket rescission last time around. The lawmaker safety one is interesting because we heard yesterday from Tim Burchett that the $58 million for the courts and executives wasn't enough. $30 million for Congress wasn't enough. The Democrats plan on asking $200 million for Congress and $140 million for courts. So a large chasm between those two amounts. Let's listen to Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett about how some in the GOP may say, you know what, no, we're not going to vote for the CR if the security funding isn't there.
Do you plan to vote for the CR?
Right now, I'm a no. We give 50-something to the executive branch, and then you divide 30 million up among 435 members. You know, for East Tennessee, those numbers work out pretty good. But for some of my friends in some of the big areas, metropolitan areas, it doesn't even touch the sides.
So that right now I'm a no was not so emphatic, right? And the interesting thing here is you have an objection based on this kind of very specific issue regarding security and obviously this horrific killing that happened, and there's definitely security concerns, but you don't hear the type of philosophical argument that we've heard from Republicans in the past, that we don't think the government should be run by CR. We are opposed to deficit spending, and we think that debt is a threat to the future of the country, and therefore we need to go to the mat for spending cuts. And so that makes me think that this is likely to be able to pass through the House, even though in the past we've heard those type of arguments, especially from the conservative wing of the party.
You know, we've been talking for a while now about Democrats and the possibility of a shutdown, and do they think that they're going to lose support from people? It looks like they might not. There was an interesting poll out that we can show you the survey data from. It's from the Data for Progress, right? It shows 70% of Democrats are fine with Democratic lawmakers withholding votes and risking a shutdown. 51% of persuadable voters agree on top of that, and over 80% of Dems believe that voters will blame the GOP if a shutdown happens. For some context, about 1,200 likely voters were surveyed. The poll's got a 3% margin of error, but that's, of course, probably music to Democrats' ears.
Yeah, I mean, I think in these shutdowns, who gets blamed, it's hard to say from the beginning. You know, this is going to get tossed into media ecosystem, and people will take, it's a messaging war. The president obviously has a huge bully pulpit, and I think there's a lot of risk for Democrats if they shut down the government. They have been trying to portray themselves as the sort of adults in the room, and if they withhold their votes over a short-term funding plan, there's risk there. Despite what I know, there's obviously the Democratic base wants Democrats to fight, but if that ends up in a government shutdown, there's just a lot of questions about who voters will blame and
the
how
reality
that
of it
plays out in the media and social media. There's like all different kinds of factors that go into how people end up feeling about it.
All right, let's continue the conversation in our 7 o'clock hour, shall we? All right.
Thank you,
Petrimoulx,
Drew.
thanks so much.